Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is, oh God, what day is it? Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. And get to finally play with my gal pal posse, Lisa Fran Rush and BZ Krieger. And BZ brought us a really cool one. I said, I vote for this one tonight. What signposts point to your divine DNA awakening? And, hands up, I want to know.
Yeah.
Because some days it feels like 2 steps forward and 6 steps back. Some days. Thank you, phone. I know I'm telling the truth. I wouldn't lie to none of y'all, believe you me.
When you were saying that, I saw Eeyore, and he's on the road, and there's a couple of old signs, they've been so weathered by the wind that there's only like a little finger left pointing, and he's like, which way do I go?
And some days that is exactly how it feels. Well, Lisa and I were talking with you just a little bit before. I think there was another one that you had shared with us as an idea, and I personally feel like there's been a lot of purging energy within me, and a lot of, because I am aware that there are still things in here that I would like to purge, get completely rid of, and all that sort. So there's like that frequency still resides in here, even though I don't want it to, and I'm not real. A lot of times in the forefront of my consciousness, I'm not quite certain what I'm dealing with. And so there's a lot of like this morning, I just know I couldn't figure out what the hell happened to me. I'm crying and going on, and not all of it I feel was mine, but obviously there is a frequential match within me of some of what I was feeling. And so, yeah, I think that might be why I was real interested in this.
Yeah.
Well, part of what you described too is that actually a couple things come in from that. When you said that some of it I don't feel was all mine. So there are times when you and other beings will be clearing, integrating things not only that are yours, but in your lineage, in your cohesive family lines back, but also as you integrate more of the aspects of you're actually then connecting to and integrating with other collectives of you. So it can be different groupings, it can be different family groupings, it can be different origins as you go into other different levels. So it can be, you could be doing a whole community on a distant planet, and that whole aspect of you what's bringing forward. So for example, I used to live on the vineyard, and it was an old whaling, 6 towns on the vineyard, but a couple of them were old whaling towns. And so old captains. And so you'd have a lot of names. It's not the only place that does this, but you have a lot of old names that are old family names, and you can say, Cook and these kinds of things, and you can trace them all the way back to, when they came over from England and stuff. So it works like that. So so that's a little village, right? One of the towns that I'm talking about. So you can think of not only in this planet, but other planets where that is happening. And what you're doing is you're clearing those collectives of that line all the way back. And, where did they seed from, and all the way back to that, and then all the way back to that, and all the way back. So now you've got multiple planets that are involved, right? And that's just one small aspect that you're unwinding and unbinding.
Well, that, thinking about that just now, when not even going to that,
Right.
but just right
on this planet.
Right. If I just stayed right here on this planet with the genealogy I have, being bloodline, then there's a lot just right here on this planet.
Well, there you go.
So
and it's not just right here on this planet, but yes, there you go.
No, I know.
Oh, no wonder you were so weepy. Come on. It's a big.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. I didn't even think about it past that. And I didn't even think about it going back through my genealogical. I just, was thinking collective on the planet.
Yes.
Well,
that's another level and layer, and then those are other cohesive structures within that. But the one that I was most drawn to highlight was the line.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's why it's really, and I will say this though, I have gotten to the point where I don't ask myself too terribly much about it. I just allow it, because if I start asking myself questions, and it starts getting to be like in regards to things like that, then that takes my focus off of just feeling and allowing.
Moving through it, integrating and moving through it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's all of that is contrary to, I think we've touched on this a couple of other times before, but the whole therapy and whatever model, you don't need to talk about every nuance and find everything and rehashing it, because you're actually reactivating it over and over and over again. It's just you're when you accommodate and support that clearing and whatever is moving through you wholeheartedly. So whether you're hopping mad or you're pounding weepy or whatever it is, right, that you give it the full love and support and attention, and you can get into it in little bits of moments where where you're sobbing to beat the band, or pounding your fist or whatever it is, and then you let it go through, rather than, okay, well, now who was that, who said that, what did this, and who done me wrong, and you just let it go, because that's the whole idea. It's coming up, it's being integrated, and it's being let go, which means it's being cleared, not only from you, but all the way through back to the very beginning of that. So you're the embodiment who's been chosen to do that work for that.
Yeah, and that's not always easy. I want to point that out. I'm not the only one. I'm certain that, has had in the past, folks are very critical when anybody cries or shows emotions and things like that. So a lot of my life has been spent trying to negate, deny, shove down, suppress, wonder why I got to 490 pounds.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of trying to just feel it, experience it, and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's weakness, or it's, that sort of thing. There's lots more than just weakness, but and I get it that it makes others feel uncomfortable. My motto at this point is get over yourself, because no, I'm not going to stop myself anymore from that kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, I feel like that so kind of goes hand in hand with the DNA awakening, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely, because one of the so we could turn that around a little bit and show you that's one of the signposts, because those, you don't have to, you could look at it as a broad signpost where there's emotion coming up and there's the realization, this doesn't feel like it's all me right in the locality, right? Yet it's moving through me and there's quite a lot of it, and I have a knowing to keep flowing with it. That makes sense. And because you're taking that river all the way back, and you're cleaning out the mud, or you might clearing out if there's a whole bunch of stuff blockading the river,
so I would like to ask both of you, actually, and I would like for both of you to think about it for a moment, and then, because I heard this question and they sort of echoed my own. Okay, so we have you don't want to sit and rehash it, but one does want to allow it to move through. So do you, either one of you, have ways that you have used for yourselves in, I get the sitting with it, I get that, but I have a feeling that there is something more that we may do to assist ourselves in, and I guess why I'm saying that is that the tendency when one does feel weepy, mad, whatever, is to look for a physical right here and now reason. And so if we say it may not always be right the here and now, just like we were saying, either genealogically for this particular incarnation and because it's not just or, it's and other aspects of self, to assist one in that clearing, like, I don't know, any kind of, what do you do when that happens for you? And I don't care which one of you goes first, but if you don't mind, I hate to put you both on the spot, but I'm gonna, because I want to know.
That's okay. Well, I'll start.
Okay.
Because we kind of went through this a little bit this morning. So I think I just walked you through this morning what I do. So I just asked you why. You just said, something's wrong, I just want to cry. And I said, why is that wrong? Cry if you want to cry. And you did. And then more came out. You said that you felt sad. So that's what I do. I'll sit with the emotion and ask it questions, kind of like a friend. So why are you here? What's up with you? Where did you come from? What you got? And just be okay with the answers, whatever they are. And then, I have a conversation with whatever the answer is. I just sort of, and when I'm doing that free-flowing improv conversation, I know that the silent observer, the soul me, is the one that's having the conversation, and I can tell who the players are due to the quality of the conversation. And what I'll do at that point is sort of surrender to what wants to come in, and I'll feel very comforted. And sometimes I'll even see like flashes or images of a childhood experience that might attach to that emotion for me. And I'll see it sort of flashing in many scenarios maybe. And in that moment, I'll make a connection and I'll kind of grok something. Oh, wait a minute. and I'll see wisdom and clarity in those things maybe that have happened. And I'll just have this warmth of clarity wash over me, and I'll sit with the sadness, or, you know, in this case, I'm using sadness because that's what we were dealing with today. But really, you could do that with absolutely anything that arises. And then I'll just get to a place where I'm okay with it as it happened, and it now, which is a comfortable place where I can think about it, like maybe the memory, and not feel sort of like I'm going to get lost again in that feeling. But maybe initially that thing that came up for me has a trigger, right? And it's kind of unhealed. And so it's always in the background. And if I allow myself to sit with the sadness, it can take me back to that place and unlock it, where I see it for what it is, and embrace it for the moment and leave it in the moment. And I like the way BZ described going back, and you're actually healing it. You know, remember, like I told you about, I'll go back to a childhood experience where I felt a certain way, and I can relive it, only this time, like if I was disappointed in a parent or an adult in that instance, I will become that parent or that adult and say, okay, baby, you know, and scoop up whatever part of me is having the fit about it, who's stuck in that particular trauma, and you know, be the support that I felt was lacking. And then I realized there's nothing lacking, because the lack disappears. There's no little thread of lack somewhere. It just sort of dissolves. And so for me, that's how I feel integration works, because the story maybe is still there for me, but in a more beautiful, whole way, where I see the love and the beauty and the wisdom and the divinity in all of it. So yeah, that's what.
Thank you.
Yeah, because, you know, it's not past and present and future. It's all happening now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So from the linear processing, you go back, you whole it, you shift the experience, then you come forward and it doesn't exist anymore, because in the moment you've changed it all.
Yes. It's not active. It's not an active trauma anymore in your vibration.
Right, because it's
healed.
It's been dematerialized. Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you could add, BZ, besides what Lisa had already said? Because I do have something else that I would like to ask both of you, but I would like to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that I would do. I found, I was thinking about your question, and so I could, a lot of them come, I do the thing when the thing comes, if that makes sense. So in other words, one of the things I would suggest is if you go for a walk to different places, and you may get nudged, you know, something is coming over, you're feeling it, so you go for, you think to go for a walk, and then you get nudged where that walk may be, a regular place you walk, or maybe there's a certain place downtown or in the city or in a park or whatever it is, you know, you'll kind of get nudged to a certain location. So that was one of the things that I do. Oftentimes, though, by walking in a certain place, that actually ignites what is unfolding, unraveling, and unbinding, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get back to that in a minute. Another thing that I do is when if I'm at work, or if I'm just maybe even driving the car or something, I could be anywhere doing it. But so I always carry paper or something, so I can just it's kind of like expressive drawing. So it may just be squiggly lines, but it's just the flow of the pen on paper, and maybe symbols will come out, maybe words or phrases will come out. Again, maybe a little bit of squiggles could be actual things that you could recognizable, drawings. But that seems to mirror the flow of the ink through the pen coming out, and so that just lets stuff. So you can be really hard strokes with the pen because there's anger coming out, or or there's tears or whatever it is, and that just is a good way to just keep it flowing. As far as the going for the walk, it will trigger something. Sometimes you might feel nudged to drive in a part of your city or your town, and that will strike something up and let it unleash. There have been many times when I've been walking someplace, and could be by myself, could be with the dogs, could actually have some other friend or two walking with me, and be happy or be in an up place, and then all of a sudden just kind of feel this blanket of something come over me. It could be fear, it could be abject terror, it could be incredible sadness and anguish. I'm describing a couple of different moments that are coming to mind. Could be anger. And in that moment, it's like being in a multimedia surround sound stage, amphitheater stage, because I've been walking. I remember one time that comes to mind, actually, when you first asked the question, came to mind, was walking in Redmond, Washington, in a big kind of park-like setting, and through the woods. And it was just me and a friend. It wasn't a place, no dogs were allowed there, so just me and a friend were walking there. And we were just chatting, walking along, and all of a sudden I kind of looked around. It was a pretty forest, and then I took another step, and waves of grief came over me, tears streaming down my face, just finger snap like that. And I looked all around and stopped, and the entire, I don't know, it was hundreds of acres, were all ablaze. And the earth was scorched, and fire all around, and the sense of right now, the word Armageddon comes to mind, but it was eons old, in that, so like a repetition of eons old, so something, and then a couple of eons before that, and before that, like, so the ashes upon the ashes upon the ashes of this. And at that one time, I just dropped to my knees as I watched, was immersed in this, and was integrating my role in this, my absolutely direct hand in this. I wasn't the only one, but I was a big player in this. And this friend that was with me, knew me enough to watch me and thought, uh-oh, here comes another one. And just kind of stood quietly, because to them, it was a nice wood still. And when it was done, I had to catch my breath and kind of settle myself and settle the quaking and shake it off, and then got up and took some time where there was a path. He walked a little bit that way, and I walked a little bit my own, and we met back up again. And so anyways, that's how it comes for me if there are big things. And that was, that wasn't just personal to me locally. That was a big thing coming through. So in other words, I can trigger them by doing that, but I can also feel them coming. And if for some reason, maybe there's something in me that's blocking, or I'm not quite open to it already, I can then do it in reverse. So I can get nudged to go to a certain place for a walk. And I think that, no, I know that part of that did happen in that location, but it was, I might describe it as, you can kind of like drill through the layers of the realms of the earth, so to say, and the generational, the eonal ways of that same thing that was not only that more localized geographical area, but planet-wide, and the connections from, so as if someone has well, maybe I do know why this is coming up, but if someone has a trading route, through like the old spice route or that kind of stuff. So it's a route, right? So you could think of that as a path. It's a mechanism, a conduit where things flow. So if you think of something fully engulfed and it's being burned asunder, right? You could think that the path, that route, that spice trade route, is all in flames. So from a literal standpoint, it's what, thousands of miles or more, is not across continents. It's not necessarily going to all be in flames, but yes, it is, because it's a conduit for the energy of that, or a slave, or so that could be on planet through off planet, and where all the slave trade goes, and and where the harvesting of DNA, and which is interesting that we're talking about this in the DNA, but all that goes as well. So that would be one way that I do it. Sometimes I just walk into it, and I don't have any choice. I just deal with it. And sometimes I can feel something coming on, and to release it, I will be nudged to go someplace. So the walk is what I use for that.
Okay. Well, you might have actually answered this in that too. Your description there sounds very much like what I experienced, that I had that once, but I didn't quite grasp it at that point. But now, so so today, for me, it was like there was nothing I could put my finger on, not here, me in the chair at this moment specifically, and without sitting and thinking about. That's why I just allowed the tears to come, because I really didn't quite understand it. And I guess what I'm saying is, so it's not necessarily always that we have to grok what it's about.
Right? I never look for that. I never, that's never part of my intention to look for that. My only intention is to meet it, connect with it, and to move through it.
Well, that's what I was saying to Lisa, with my proclivity to analyze everything. I specifically did not want to go down a rabbit hole looking for what it was, because that would take my focus and attention off of allowing.
And that's not the way to integrate it anyways.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about it in those terms. I just know myself that much about that. And I knew that I would take my focus and attention away from that. And I'm not quite sure that I didn't kind of do that anyway, but Okay. So that is your, so we're saying that is a particular, can be a particular signpost.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it can be flashing. With a drive-up window for refreshments if you're going to be there a while.
I'm sorry. I also saw a lady with a sign that, stops traffic that might smack you over the head too. I saw that too for just then. For me in particular, I guess. I don't know.
And
But
you can, so that's, I mean, I don't know that it's run of the mill common, but I do know that I have encountered many like myself who have done as I have done in different places where you're walking along, you're, having a conversation, and you're just being quiet, walking down the street in the city or in the country, or, different settings. It's not just one setting or the other. Sometimes it's actual stuff in the ground. I had to laugh because afterwards I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm in Redmond. So I'm in Microsoft, the heart of Microsoft country. And I thought, okay, well, those pieces fit all together. So, that fit into what I was seeing. It was those mega movie theater type things where they have, I don't know, 7 theaters. Well, this was all, they'd broken down all the walls and it was all one screen. And it was total surround sound. And I was in the middle of all that was going on.
yeah, that's why I said it sounded it felt actually, your description felt very much like my own experience of destroying galaxies. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I've done that other thing too. And another way that I would describe signposts is, and a lot of these ways to help notice a signpost is again to already be in that open-hearted, receptive, gregarious, inquisitive, playful noticing of things and following one's nudges, and not going into a dissertation of yay or nay, or kibitzing, or forgetting to ask, what would you like, me to do today. So for example, this morning I was getting my car serviced, just oil and filter change and stuff. And so beforehand I had a bunch of things I had to do, a little bit for work, and then I was taking some time off to do that. And so I scripted how, I was running kind of late and that was supposed to take me X number of time to get there. And so I thought, okay, well, that's okay. I'm just going to hop and make up the time that I'm already supposed to be on the road and I'm not, and I'm going to get there, and I'll be there 4 minutes early for my appointment. And I was there 5 minutes early for my appointment, which is pretty good, seeing as I was about 15 minutes late leaving. And then I said, well, it'll only take me X number of time for the thing, and then whatever you would like me to do from there, just let me know. I'm on it. So the appointment unfolded very quickly, and I was kind of in the zone doing some work the way that I do it for my own expansion and stuff at the table. And Keegan's hanging out with me and in the waiting room. And then we left, and I said, all right, well, where to? So I get in the car and I come to an intersection, and I said, oh, okay, well, I'll just go left because that feels right. And then I was told, when you get to the rotary, do this and do that and do that. I have no idea where I'm going. Not really ever been down that road or this place. And so Keegan's hanging in the back, and we're just looking around because we know this is how it starts. That something is unfolding. These are signposts. The very act of going and doing this the way that I'm doing it is a signpost, because in that openness, in that direct request for how can I be of service? Where is the direction to go? What would be expansive for me to do for others, for myself, because it is all it's the same, right? And completely trust, not, well, how long is it going to take, or where are we going, or we're just going. We're in the car, and we have limited supplies packed, like you just one camera and a couple lenses and this, that, and the other thing, and off we go. And the fun thing for me, another signpost, is Keegan in the back, because more than just a dog happy to be in a car going for a ride, he will tend to, sometimes he'll snooze, sometimes he'll just hang his head out the window in a little bit, happy dog, smiling face in the wind. And sometimes he's kind of looking, he's on alert, not in any kind of guarded way, but just something cool. I know something cool is coming, and he's just watching. And sometimes he'll look, and in a car driving, he can catch a bird, an eagle, or this, that, and the other thing flying out of the car, and he'll put his head near me, and he'll look so he can look underneath, his line of sight for the thing, and follow the bird, and then poke me. It's, did you see that? So that's how the whole series of signposts started, to this morning, where I thought I saw a flash of something, and he poked me, and it was an owl, a short-eared owl that tends to hunt not just at nighttime. And so we pulled over, and this whole series of events happened where there was communication from me and me. There was communication from this magnificent tree, I don't know what variety it was, that was near this old farm or this. So those are all DNA signposts, because I think what is not often kind of tuned into is that all of those things are ways that you have an immersion and a conduit, like you've plugged your cord into different components of Gaia, different components of the energy, various energy fields and codes that are coming down. You can, for example, on that line, you can have the sun in the sky, and the way that the light is coming down, and by being present to it, you're actually plugging into those codes in a very direct way that are coming down. And within that, you're catching the different codexes that are intimate to you in that point. So one way you could say that is by noticing those signposts, flowing with them, and then stopping. So I thought I'd seen something, and he's looking, and there was nothing. So I was nudged again to just drive maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 feet down the road and pull over and just wait. So I had the camera out, and I was just present and waiting. And very clearly I heard, coming up on your left. And so I had the camera in pan, and there's, the owl. And so it's beyond taking photographs, because for me, that's one of the ways that I do a meditation, that I do the conversations, that I do the connecting, and have the conversation with the being that it could be the subject of the photography. So this kept going on in different ways. And there was a magnificent female red-tailed hawk, and we're out, and it's farmland, and we're out, and we just happen to know, I'll describe it in a linear way, we just happen to know right which patch of road to just scoot off, and we're barely off the road, and we don't care. And the hawk just happens to decide that space right there where my window is rolled down and Keegan's is partway down so he can look out the window and I got the camera out the window, is the place where what they're hunting just happens to be right smack in that place. And the acrobatics, and then it just so happens that when they fly off a little bit, a marsh hawk comes and that they decide that window, same perfect for where I've rolled down the road just a little bit, is where they're going to have a dogfight, you know. And then when I having the conversation, because the body of my camera I'm using is my old body because I had a jam with the new one, so it doesn't advance as fast in the motor drive. So I was chuckling and I was saying, you know, I'm kind of slow this morning at this because my equipment's not where I'm used to. Would you mind flying back around again so I could, you know, maybe there's another pass at hunting or whatever. And I'm having this conversation, you know, in a nice way. And the hawk comes and does all these swifts and turns and then glides and looks right at me and says, like, as if to say, am I going slow enough for you yet? Can you think you can work that thing? You know, so I mean, these are all signposts where that's beyond just connecting, because it's more, I'm not sure how the right way to say this. It's more than being in the zone with a camera. It's more than being attuned to nature. It's you are getting and giving codes right that moment, and up jumps with not only the bird in this case and Gaia and myself, but in that triality, so the bird being and the planet and me, there's a triality where kind of like a Star Trek image comes to mind, where the beams from the three of us meet, and as they intersect, they flash, and that pulse sends out new, never before created codes from that coalescing of that DNA activation. So it's really you know, it's kind of the triality codes of the diamond light codes and the grail codes that are all flooding the planet right this moment.
You just used a word that I hadn't heard used before, grail codes.
Mm-hmm. They're different. Since I'm not all that big into naming, I don't pay that much attention to what comes in, but they're different aspects, not the right word. They're different realms and different frequencies of codes as there's more and more expansion. So if you think of, this isn't quite the right way to describe it, but you think of rings, you know, with the tightest in the center would be the lower dimensional and the lower, tighter realms of Earth, old Earth, and third dimensional. And then there are bandwidths of frequency ranges within those as they come out, and they you know, my hands don't go wide enough, but they widen and widen from that, and they can have a range within them. So as you go out, it's easier to play in the range because you have that expansion. So, you know, if you think of someone who's singing, right? And it's you would know this better than me, Sheila, but they're talking about their voice and the range that they can carry. Not only the range on the whole scale, but the range in each note, right? In each octave that they can carry. So that would be similar to what I'm speaking of. So as you go further out and you're more expansive on that, you can play with and hit the whole range. Whereas when you're in the center, you can't, because the shearing force is too much for you with the density, and the distortion that you're holding. And so your range would only be this. And then as you get out, you're going like that, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does. It just struck me, actually, the word grail, I guess, mostly because, had some Merlin stuff around us lately.
Yeah, well, Merlin would be one. It's the whole, because this is the year is the aspect of sovereignty and the Grail and the Holy Grail and all of that, the singularity that all are becoming is all encoded in those frequencies.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
So, as you go with the journey that I was talking about, and it continued on, there were different nudges. And so I'd get to an intersection and, part of me said, okay, well, we should, that was a tip off. Which was not a signpost. We should, probably go do that, or maybe go do this, and I said, well, nope, because we're just at an intersection, and whereas there may not be any stop signs, but there's nobody around me, and I can pull off to the road, and I don't care if they drive by me, until I got a sense which way the wind's blowing, would be at that particular one. And so I turned left, and again, Keegno signals, and there's an eagle up on one of the telephone poles. So I slowly look at that, and I sensed something, so I could feel something without looking. I turned and looked, and I thought, what is that? And I looked a little closer. And so again, this is, to me, very, very crystalline, crystal clear DNA signpost, because as I sat for a moment and not only looked, but connected in, and then used the long lens on the camera as well, what I was watching was a rite of passage, because there were 5 eagles on the ground. They were in a field. There just happened to be some it rained a lot, so there was some water on the field. Some places around here we get a lot of rain and it sits a bit, And I thought, well, that's interesting. What's going on there, And as I connected in more, it was the 2 parent eagles and their 3 fledglings. And they have just flown from the nest, and they have brought their first thing, and they were having their first feed of their fledged life as eagles. And so to be able to see that is quite an honor, that to be directed and invited to that, and just happened to be there at these moments that was happening. So again, these are you can, many layers that you could look at it, that it's a cool place to be, and the nudge and all that kind of stuff. But again, those are enormous signposts with much gravitas about them for the doorways that you yourself are walking through. And those are all metaphor, and they're literal as well, because the birds are right there and this is what they're doing. But I mean, it's metaphor for all that you're walking through. Very much like you might do if you're doing a meditation and you're getting these visions of these things and these inner landscape conversations and so on and so forth. Oftentimes I just happen to do it with my eyes wide open. So
you're calling to mind something that I've been doing lately too. Just that.
Speak up, Lisa. No, speak up is all I'm saying. Your mic is not very good.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
I've been taken to doing that so I'm just kind of walking around the yard. But I'm doing it in that mindful spirit that you're talking about, where I feel called where I'm listening, and I'm knowing that I'm interacting with my environment. I guess, I don't know, there's just, it's a state of mind or
Yes.
being that I walk in. Well, this morning I felt called to go outside, and I didn't know why, but I had to pack a little bag, so I did. I got all my goodies in my bag, and I went outside, and immediately I felt the air. Okay, well, the air was really warm. It hasn't been warm first thing in the morning for a while, and that struck me. But I felt like I was in the presence of royalty or something. I don't know. There was this air of like, I don't know. I just could feel that the air felt different. And I thought, oh, what's going on? It felt auspicious. That's the word that I kept feeling. And I was like, oh, this is an auspicious moment, and I'm going to witness it, right? So and of course now I wasn't driving around, but I was tiptoeing around the yard, but being guided around the yard, if you will. And on my little route, I found a stick, and it made me feel really excited. And so I knew right away what I was going to do with the stick. And then I was just led. So when I got close to the center of the little tree grove in the backyard, I could feel very strongly a congregation, I'll put it that way. And I said, inside, I said, if the fairies are here with me, I feel you. Because I just felt elemental fairy energy. And I said, thank you for taking such good care of this lovely, perfect backyard. And I just spent time like sending them love, honoring them, thanking them, and I got it back. So that's really an exciting feeling. And then, of course, I said, if anybody who would like to reveal themselves to me today, that would be fabulous too, because I would be honored to bear witness to you in the physical. And so I just put that out there and let it go and continued on my path. Well, just as I was finished and I felt called to sit and swing and to just be, the moment I sat down, my attention right away was drawn to a very specific part on our little, what is that, a storage unit.
Like a garage.
What?
It's like a garage. Yeah.
An inside part and then a park the car part. And so this looked like it was coming from the little building section, but there were little fairies flying out of two portions of the shed. And I saw them heading to the grove, and they did a swirly, vortexy dance in the light. Like just, they put on a show for me. And I said, oh, are you the fairies? And I got a yes. That was just, unmistakably fairy and delightful. It was fairy delightful, for sure. And there were thousands, if not millions of them fluttering out of the shed. And I said, you live above the shed. And they said, yes. I know, this is so funny. And then, so after that, they dispersed and they went into the trees, and a few of them fluttered by. I wanted so desperately to see if they were bugs or if they were fairies. And I said, I would be comfortable if you were to fly closer to me. And so a few did. And they got very close up, and they looked like the most people-y little bugs I've ever seen. And they had two sets of wings like this that I could see clearly. And they were independent of one another, sort of. They were the most fluttery, and then they had a little body. And I swear, now nobody was in my eyeball, you know, like I didn't touch them or hold them, but they were just very fairy-esque, and they were very quick. Like they fluttered in and then left, and when I couldn't follow them. It seemed that they disappeared because there were thousands and thousands, and then very slowly it took, after the dance, it was quite a performance, then they dispersed and went like toward trees and different things, and me, but only a handful of them came toward me. And I thanked them because it was so beautiful. It felt so wonderful, and it was so enjoyable. And I just said thank you. And then they said, well, I said, oh, okay. So right before I sat down, because I had collected trinkets that revealed themselves to me, and when I set them down at the table before I sat down on the swing, I said to myself, I guess I've convened a fairy conference this morning, you know. And I was just being real cute with myself, like I was the maestro of this sacred moment that I had stepped into, and I sat down on the swing, and that's when I literally saw them. And I was like, oh my goodness, there really was a fairy conference in the shed. And after I was like, in the shed. And they said, yes, we come from above. And then all of a sudden there was another steady stream. And this wasn't coming around the shed, because this part was the shed facing me. What I saw now was more directly in front of the shed, the front door, how you would go into the shed. There's a little patio there. Right at the edge of the patio, it looked like they were coming right out of a plant, right out of the earth. There were two new streams, and they were coming and coming by the thousands, and the dance began again. And I said, oh my goodness, and you're coming from underneath the shed? And they said, yes, and we come from below. And the dance continued, and they did their swirly thing, and a few came by to greet me, and then they left. And well, while they were dancing around, I got a little ting on my phone. So after the fairy dance kind of broke up again for the second time, I read the little notification, and it was something from Sheila. And so then I came in and chatted with her, and I recommended that she take off her socks and come sit outside for a minute, because the fairies have great messages. It's a beautiful day today, and it's very beautiful today. And when we came back out here, there wasn't a fairy in sight, because I wanted to show them to her. But they were already dissipating by the time, you know, I came in the house, and there wasn't a single fairy when I came back out. But I could feel them, and I had that gratitude of just the honor that you were speaking of earlier. Just that I was just in awe of everything, and that I was there to bear witness, and it was just delicious. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So you just gave another great example of, you know, a signpost of that expanded divine DNA, the Grail DNA unfolding. And as you started to describe that, what came very clearly to me, it was a coronation ceremony that was occurring. So make with it what you want of that. But that's what it is, and it's a fairy raft that is under the shed.
A what?
A fairy raft.
A fairy raft.
Yeah, it's the whole palace underneath.
Oh, well, it's quite spectacular. I must say, it feels delicious.
So look at how, again, how all of, you know, what's in sync with my sharing of my morning and your sharing of your morning was the nudge to go for a drive this way or that way, and to have certain things in the car with me, and for you to go outside, pack your bag, right? Collect different things along the way, and then go and be present and subject to one another. And so beyond being, a magical and fantastical and just delicious way to spend moments, in each moment of our mornings. But it's also a traveling through gateways and portals and jumping in through the different codexes and coding and decoding of packets of energy that are coming in as you go through that. Sometimes there is something to clear out first. Sometimes that comes in, and we have the fullness of that experience and what it's doing for us, and then that can oftentimes be a trigger for other things that need to be cleared. So, in other words, sometimes you can have that which comes through, like Sheila described, right? So we kind of got, the three of us are describing all those different parts of it, where that overwhelm, that feeling, that pouring, purging comes forth, and that's integrating and clearing, you flow with it. And that's now cleaned the palette and cleared the energetics from your vessel and your cascading realms that are intimate to you. And that doesn't just mean in this lineage, but as we talked about lineage back, right? And that allows for the next sweeping thing to come in. So your version of the Eagle's Fairies, whatever that may be, whether it's out, quote unquote, external to you, or internal in a vision and everything, or a combination thereof. And then I already had some of what I'm talking about, where you encounter these things, which is that magical mystical thing, and it's a signpost of the DNA, and then that triggers an up jump again, where I may be going through something akin to what Sheila was describing. There are a whole range of different ways that it manifests, but this is how it flows. It's the in breath and the out breath of all this expansion. Nothing is static. And the thought that nothing is changing is a cosmically sized joke, because just breathe. Because on the in or the out, it's changed yet again.
Well, I have a sense that with what both of you were saying there, that it led me back to that feeling of things being event driven. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what you're speaking on there. Mm-hmm. And so even when they are painful things,
perceived as,
even if you don't really grok all of what it is that is so painful, I don't know. Because last week I have as I was sitting here listening to what both of you were saying and feeling into my experience today, all of a sudden, what happened with me last week with that incident with my mother came to mind. Is there was definitely it was a wondrous, very mystical experience, but there was also some clearing that took place in that for me. So I can see where that experience or event, it may or may not have anything to do with this one today, but I feel that
Well,
that went
you're connected, so it does.
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's why I have a sense that it was
Yeah.
that event drove, and yeah,
But
because
I
there
mean,
it,
you experienced both of them, so you are the connection. Whether one is to the east and one is to the west doesn't really matter because
oh, I see what you're saying.
you're in the middle, right? I mean,
Okay.
it was Sheila who experienced this and Sheila who experienced this. And are they connected? Yes, because Sheila experienced this and Sheila experienced that. So there's your connection.
Okay, I get that, but I was speaking in terms of things being event driven. But I get what you're saying, that that's the same thing.
But they are, because you change. That's the event. So Sheila
Yeah.
experiencing this is an event that drives this experience of this. Can there be a triality between this event and this event? And Sheila, yes, there can. But it can also be the upswing, the up jump, the expansion from one to the next.
I gotcha. Okay.
And you can do it the other way to finish it around in a this is inaccurate, but a future event. So this first event is shifting and changing, right? And up leveling and integrating and doing all of the things, right? And then this event comes of that. And now you're at a different place now. So now that these two pieces can now come for this event because you weren't ready for that event yet.
Right.
So in that respect, yes, they are absolutely connected. Right. But you have changed dramatically pre this event to post this event, which sets up the flowering of this event, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I got that. Believe it or not, I really did. So these signposts obviously can and will look, feel, taste different for each one of us, and different occasions or instances, I should say.
Yeah, everything is going to be different because everything is all calibrated for our particular intimate connection and frequency. You could say the similarities are that the quality and the recognizability and the knowingness of that signpost is in the expansive characteristic of it.
And I just heard the question, is it imperative or necessary or required to recognize the signpost in order to experience the divine DNA awakening?
Well, the last word you spoke is awakening, which means awaken, which means aware, which means to come into connection with. So at some point, one needs to do that. You can't just be sawing wood, for here on out and get to the awakening part.
Wait a minute. We can't hear you, Lisa. For some reason, we can't hear you.
So she's saying we can't become conscious without becoming conscious. Sorry.
Well, no, I get that. I am voicing the question that I heard,
Okay.
and I get that. However,
Well, I haven't finished. Wait a minute. She's playing with my answer, and I haven't even finished the answer. But yeah, that's also in the snarky side. That would be what else I would say. But what I was gonna say is that you can receive a lot of the benefits of the signposts, and they can be seeds planted, codes planted, packets planted within you, but you must unlock them. You must be the driver, the tiller, the one who hoes the field, who tends and nurtures that. You must do that. No, that's an inside job, because it's it's at the behest of you. If you are not bringing forth the flowering of oneself, no one can nor will they do it for you, because it's thy will be done for you. It's you're doing it.
Well, I've experienced that my own self now, because it's I would refer to that as an oh, now I get it moment. You know, because I've had those. So I see what you're saying about, you know, the signpost could be a seed that was planted out. I may not see or feel or grok it in that moment in its totality, because I have had that experience where I know there's something there. I can feel it. I'm not quite, I didn't grok it all, or it didn't get all the way in, or there's all kinds of words I could use to describe that, because I've even
Yeah, but the
said, well,
way
there's
you just
something there.
but the way you just described it, there is an engagement with it. That's different than the way that you phrase the question, which is basically, I can be sawing wood and someone will pass me the memo and then I'll know what's happening, right? Or the shuttle bus going to Fifth and Main is going to show up and honk the horn and I'll, take my slippers off, put my shoes on and go out to the thing. But the way you described it, yes, you may not know chapter and verse. You may not be able to, write a blog post or make a video or do all sorts of other things and describe, with there's certain language and certain this and certain that and certain that. But you have a sense and a knowing, and it has landed. You just haven't unpacked it all. Yes, absolutely. But those are two different things from the way that the first question was originally phrased and what you were saying. So the second part would be, yes, absolutely. And that's part of the noticing. That's part of the being present. That's part of being subject to one another. And the one another is right here. You'd be subject to you first would be really helpful. As I said in Quantum Toolbox the other day, we've forgotten how to play, just to play. Not only I say to play with something, absolutely, but just what's in your toy box. And someone wrote a wonderful thing on, I think it was held. I don't have it right, but on a comment on Facebook too. I said, share what's in your toy box and what you saw, and this wondrous description, and that they were kind of surprised. And what did I think? And I thought, well, bravo, cool, keep opening the toy box, because dive right in. Scribble a bunch of toys and get going. So, but that's all part of that, being present to yourself and to notice. Again, to take it to very base, linear, three-dimensional human drivers language, there is so much in it for you and so much payoff. You can't even imagine the amounts of payoff on the linear level, not to mention the quantum and the multidimensional level. So now's the time to get with it and go, because we spend so much time, well, I can't wait to this, and this wouldn't that be wonderful if, and yada, yada, yada. And in the meantime, we still got our slippers and our house coat on, and we're waiting for the toot, on the horn, because our chauffeurs come to get us. We have to create the chauffeur, we have to do that.
Yeah, well, for me, what you're speaking is,
and the other thing is the flip on it. So, well, what am I doing wrong because it's not here yet? It's not like that, because are you inviting it in? Are you waking up in the morning and saying, how can I be of service? What would you like me to do today? And you're asking me, what would you like me to do today? And that's your commitment. That's the invitation in. That's the wholeheartedly jumping in, and the free will saying yes. and not an intellectual exercise, but yes, I'm here and I am now. And so that's the change. It to me, it's very demonstrable, but to some it can seem as subtle. But that's the free will choice. Why hasn't it happened yet? Because it comes from you. So if you're not opening the door, if you're not opening the heart, which is the door to every galaxy, every multiverse, everything that opens up, again, to use linear language, the riches, the Aladdin's cave, the treasure trove of all that you could possibly imagine. And that's just like, tiny infinitesimal speck of lint to all that you've opened up. I think there's a little saying, the kingdom of heaven is within. Well, hey, you got to open your own door to let the light shine in, and so you can see it.
Well, there's been a bit of a disservice, of course, with the language, absolutely. But I think that it really just, even though I have been, we've talked about this in one of our other videos, I have started doing that, asking how I can be of service. I just really got that is, how can I be of service to me?
Mm-hmm.
All the different layers of me.
Mm-hmm.
This is not because I don't know if I heard it somewhere else, and also there was a bit of a resonance within me. How can I be of service? That to say that at first lends the feeling that it's outside of me. No, like, how can I be of service to someone else? That's not what you're speaking about.
Well, it's certainly not unrelated, but no, it's not.
Well, right.
They actually are one and the same as you step down the path. But how can I be? So you are all. You are the singularity, and you are all, and you are the driver. You are the driver of the transformation that is happening to you and to all. Right? Go back to Railing by a Saratoga Passage. The passage is one. So, yes, that's how can you be of service to you, which is you, but that's also you as service to other, because you are as other. And since you are connected, you are being of service to the other, because of being of service to you may be to be connecting with other beings, may be to go drive down this road in that way, and that way, and that way, and that way, and you haven't been invited to this rite of passage with the eagles, or this coronation with the fairies, or these other different things. Well, so it's of service to you there, but in that connection, because there is the relationship, there is the connection, there is the magical transmitting and unfurling of all that. The path that you walk on illuminates the path for you and illuminates the path for others, and the others illuminate the path. So, it's not, well, I'm going to go get mine, and, if someone's in the way, I'll throw them a few crumbs. It isn't like that. That is from the realm of the 3D. That is from the realm of the inverted, distorted view that we've been taught.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that came in for me, it was the, putting your own oxygen mask on first too, kind of thing, It sounds very simple, but it's the, I can't be of service to anybody else if I haven't been of service to myself first.
Right. So again, go very base and very linear. If you're of service to yourself, that's inviting expansion. That's inviting your heart to be unlocked, inviting your heart to be cleared out, inviting your heart to finally be open. Do you think that if your heart was open and you've done that service to yourself, would you be of service to others if your heart was open? Okay. And do you think if your heart is closed, you can be of service to others? So, yeah.
And so I guess I wanted to say here, because I personally can feel it very clearly, the twist on the words service to self and service to others, and how and why it gets a bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when one thinks of being service to self, they think of, all kinds of heinous things. Right?
Well,
Because
yes, but there's an energetic frequency. That's why if one feels into it instead of one thinks it, they're better off. Because that is, if you're going to put languaging on it, that's being service to others with self as other, as opposed to being service to self, which is, hey, I got it all going on. I don't give a shit about anybody else. That's a totally different energetic. And there's a lot of people walking around all over the place, that have that. And that's how they go through their life. And they don't see anything wrong. And some of those could be badass dudes and dudettes, but some of them could be just, normal people who are like that. And it does not come into their wheelhouse, their consciousness. They just don't grok in any way, shape, or form that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, hey, that's who they are. And so that's the path, because they're not missing anything, and they're not isolated from all that is coming in and unfolding. It's a choice. For whatever reason, it's their choice. And that will lead them down the path. Well, they've chosen. Everybody's chosen now. And people are going their paths. And things will change dramatically in where one has chosen. And as we have the last bits of where you still will, let's say, encounter each other, that's where compassion comes in. Because if you're getting pissed off at somebody because they're acting that way, they simply at that moment in their unfurling of expansion and existence of a being that they are, they do not have the capacity to hold the frequency beyond that. They simply do not have it. It's not saying that they're bad or wrong. They just don't got it. That's, so you can get mad at them all you want, but it doesn't do you any good. And when you get mad at them, that's showing that your heart is closed. So then forget about them for a minute. You're not being service to other with self as other in that moment, because you're blocking yourself from that. I think here I want to interject that if we don't think about it, but we feel into the nuances of it, it is smooth and simple, but there are complexities to it. If we think on it, it seems convoluted and complex. And the main reason for that is the whole false construct is an inverted nature. And because of that inverted nature of the false construct, one looks at or thinks about, kind of the reality that's out there that they've been taught in and schooled in, and they can kind of touch, and it's been their touchstone, their way, you know, that they've walked in the world, or others have walked in the world, or, you know, guided them or slammed them or, you know, roped them, or however, you know, whatever words you want to use for it, right? In that inverted sense. And so it feels sometimes like you're kind of going like this, going, okay, yeah, okay, now I get it, you know, kind of a thing. But again, part of it is, so the key that unlocks that door is to come out of the lower mind, and through the heart opening and the higher mind coming in, and that coalesces, that coherence between them, you get the third path. But that's another conversation.
Oh, and you already have that one written down
Yeah.
over there too, don't you? Yeah. That's what I thought. Well, there's another conversation up in there too, because I heard somebody else say, oh, so everybody's already made their choices. Because that's something you said. Okay. Wow. Well, do either one of you have anything you'd like to add to this one? Because I feel like there's lots more we could add, but.
Mm-hmm. I would just say that the signposts, the very noticeable signposts, are all around you. They may not be what you thought they might be or might show up as. Just the, you know, we've talked about telepathy and this, that, and the other thing. Because again, what's kind of been scripted in different things is can oftentimes be, you know, is from past energies that's convoluted in a way. But you will know. You will know. You won't know. You will know down here. And it's wondrous. In little ways, in big ways, in totally unexpected ways. And it can take a moment, and it unfolds for you. It's you know, you're stopping at the light, and there's a signpost, and you catch it, and then you start, and you go, oh, kind of like you were talking about, Sheila, and you go, oh, and then maybe, you know, you got a coffee break later, or a few minutes here and there, break in work, or whatever it is that you need to do, that, and you go, oh, so that noodling time where you're doing something else, but you can play with it, not thinking it. You're just, when I say noodling, for me, that's, it's kind of walking through all the corridors of what I'm experiencing. So it's feeling, it's on multi different levels. Yes, the brain is involved a little bit, but it's the higher mind. And don't grab at it. Don't grab, was that a signpost? You know, just let it envelop you. Because you're not missing anything. You can block things, but you're not missing anything.
Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just that this was a beautiful, right on time conversation. So
We cannot hear you.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to say that this has been a gorgeous conversation, and thank you to you beautiful ladies for having this conversation with me.
Well, something did come in for me, BZ, when you were talking about the knowing. Because, you know, that's kind of how a lot of this started for me was what do you mean you know? And something just came in because I heard that question again. But it wasn't me this time, because my answer was, I don't even know how to tell you. For me, a knowing now is I can't explain it. Can't tell you. I got no answer for you. I just know. And so, and I used to hate it when folks would say that, but I feel that that's a very real thing. It's and for someone who likes to analyze everything, or used to like to analyze everything and use their brain or their head or whatever a lot, that's kind of big, actually.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking for the note here that it's something about knowing, but since I'm writing sideways and I gotta find it. But it's about this. It's about you know, a path to understand and notice the knowings.
Well, the very last thing that I'll say is that for me, what I've said all along, and I will continue to say, it's a lot has to do with focus and attention. And for me personally, it's my focus and attention. Where is my focus and attention? And so, in regards to signposts, because if I'm not focused and attentive to these things, then yeah, I mean that's for, I can't notice it if I'm not A, open to it, and B, focused on and attentive to it.
Right. And that's the choice. That's part of the steps that you're walking up to go through your hyper accelerated evolution. You know, or you can take the regular road and a couple 100 million years go around and you come back again. And neither is wrong or right. It's what you choose.
Yeah. No, that's the other thing. Yeah. Well, thank you both so very much. And we will have all the usual things in all the usual places. And if you haven't already subscribed to Conscious Conversation Central, please do. There should be a thing in one of these corners. So till next time,